Things are getting worse both over in Europe as well as in some places down in the Middle East. We have the Houthis attacking communication cables now. We have France openly asking NATO to deploy troops to the Ukraine. This is a big deal. This is not looking like it's going to be a pushover. Poland is out there warning people that France and other countries are actually starting to actively push for NATO troops, which inevitably means United States troops, because the United States is over half of NATO. Okay, so we have a big invested interest here. That would be direct conflict between NATO troops and Russian troops in Ukraine. That would be absolutely huge. We have a tanker shortage developing out there. We've said that was going to be coming, and it is now here. Tanker rates are going up through the roof, and there just aren't enough oil tankers and petroleum product tankers around to make up for the shortfall. We also, part of that is going to be a diesel shortage that is starting to grip Europe. This is a lot to throw at you, but we need to get into some of these things because some of these things are potential World War III items. Other things are going to definitely impact our supply chains. Let's jump into it. Welcome to the Poplar Report. I'm Steve Poplar. I'm an accountant by trade. If you haven't already hit that thumbs up button, please do hit that button just to help to get this out to more people. Let's start with what's going on with Europeans saying that we need to get into an open war with Russia in Ukraine. French President Macron has openly stated that he has called for NATO troops to go into Ukraine. Now, we don't know the other countries involved with pushing for this, though we might suggest Germany might be one of them as well. Poland has come out and said multiple countries have not only asked for to deploy NATO troops to Ukraine, but they have also stated that they are prepared and ready to do so if approved. So they've already started drafting plans for sending troops into Ukraine. Now, this has already been said to be a red line for Moscow. Russia has said absolutely not. Any direct conflict between NATO troops and Russian troops in Ukraine will constitute a war between Russia and those countries. And so this is a serious problem. We've crossed red line after red line after red line. Remember when they said we can't send tanks to Ukraine because that would constitute war with Russia. Now we're sending tanks, and one of ours was destroyed just the other day. Video footage is making its way around. Remember how we said we can't send fighter aircraft, we can't send military aircraft to Ukraine because that would constitute war with Russia. And now we're sending combat aircraft to there. We said we couldn't send them long-range missiles, land-based missiles, because that would constitute war with Russia. We've crossed red line after red line after red line after red line. The question is, can we get away with sending troops in there? And one, that means putting American lives at risk by sending American troops in there. Now, I'm not naive. I know there are American CIA people, there are American military personnel in Ukraine right now, helping with training and with targeting and working in support functions. Like, if you don't think that's true, like, seriously. I recall seeing American soldiers, Green Berets, wearing Iraqi uniforms back in the day, pretending to be Iraqi soldiers. And that was common practice. And United States soldiers commonly, especially in the special operations communities, will change their uniforms. And that is definitely something that happens. How many people were asked to retire on paper so that they could then go over and fight alongside Ukrainian soldiers, for contractors or mercenary groups and that type of thing. So we're already in there, but we're not officially in there, okay? And this would definitely change things. Imagine you're Russia, and you have other countries that are sending troops to fight your troops. How would you not see yourself at war with those countries? How would you not see any potential first strike? It wouldn't be a first strike because you're responding, but any strike against those countries through EMP, through use of tactical and nuclear weapons against targets within the battlefield, how would you not see any of that as on the table? That would seem to be on the table then. And I don't think a lot of these countries really understand that their concern about being threatened by Russia is going to be actually made so much worse by them sending troops in there. Let's just say this is not getting a great reception from the EU about this and NATO. The NATO meeting was not favorable to these things, but the fact that it's now being openly discussed, what was unthinkable just months ago is now thinkable and being in a conversation. So we will keep a close eye on that. But with that kind of coming down the pike, you might be seeing Russia doing more aggressive actions in the near future in response to that. Speaking of that, Houthis down in Yemen, they have a bunch of undersea cables that go from Asia, that connect internet connections from Asia over to Europe. These are long-standing cables that go from the Middle Eastern countries as well as over in India and such. How does India information get from India to Europe? I mean, all these people that are answering phones and stuff like that, it's through these fiber optic cables that are on the seafloor. And these go right past Yemen. They threatened to cut them before. Well, now reports are that they've cut 4 of these fiber optic cables. They carry a tremendous amount of information, and this is already starting to affect internet capabilities between India and Europe. So this is a big deal. Now there are more and more cables down there, but the fact that the Houthis have started actively cutting these cables is definitely a serious concern for the internet health overall. And so the world is about these fiber optic cables that wrap around the world. Russia has previously said that they consider any fiber optic cables between aggressor countries, countries that are supporting actively the Ukrainians in Ukraine, that they would consider those cables as legitimate targets. So especially after the pipeline that was attacked by apparently United States and allies, that pipeline was critical infrastructure that was attacked. There's a Russian pipeline, and then because of that, they said relatively soon after that they would consider fiber optic cables on the seafloor to be legitimate targets because of that. So those cables are coming under attack. CCOM has already confirmed that they've had significant droppage of traffic, and they said basically it would take about 8 weeks is their estimate on how long it would take to repair those cables. However, and this is a big one, are they going to send a ship to go sit still out in the ocean within missile range of Yemen while Yemen is shooting at anything that moves? If they're shooting anything that moves, they're probably going to shoot even more at something that's not moving. To have divers diving off of a ship that has to stay in place directly over these cables is definitely a concern for a potential, that would be hazardous duty like no one would believe. In addition to that, we have a tanker shortage also caused by the Houthis, right? Everyone is taking their tankers the long way around Africa, which means that each transit takes longer to get to where they need to go. And if it takes longer to get to where they need to go, that means you need more ships to carry the same amount of product. So we have oil and petroleum deliveries worldwide are now down at 40-year lows. You have to go back 40 years to see the same amount of oil and petroleum products being delivered by sea. Now, some of that can be made up by having more pipeline usage and that kind of thing in some places, but what it's saying is that there's less petroleum products moving across the ocean, which means some countries that import all of their fuel oil are going to start seeing their stockpiles dwindle. We're already seeing diesel starting to move into shortage in Europe. They've put the sanctions on Russia and diesel, and they squeeze those. That's where they get a lot of their diesel. Also, Ukraine has attacked numerous refineries within Russia, that some of them which they make diesel, right? So less diesel being produced, less diesel being imported by Europe. Also, with the tanker shortage, that's causing problems there too. The United States doesn't have much to spare. The United States is struggling to produce enough diesel for the United States. Now, the situation in the United States is not dire at this point, but it doesn't have spare capacity of diesel production to send to Europe. Now, Kuwait has brought on a new refinery online, which will start to help with with diesel production worldwide. But, and this is a big but, is that requires tankers to carry that diesel to markets, and they've also been having issues with that refinery getting it fully operational. So no word yet on where we are with that. They've had some issues. They've had to shut down a few times, and from what I gather, they're still not fully up to speed. So we have diesel issues. We have tanker shortage, which we have the least number of tankers being produced in 2024. So the scheduled completions of tankers is at 40-year lows as well. We've never, in the last 40 years, had any year where we've produced less tankers out there. Now, tankers keep getting scrapped because they become so fuel inefficient, and it just becomes more cost-effective to scrap them. We're probably going to see postponements of retirements of old tankers, because they're going to be so much in demand right now. So that will help alleviate things a little bit. But having more old tankers and not having new tankers that are needed will cause more supply issues out there. So those are some of the big news items that you need to be hearing out there. We may be having issues with diesel going forward. If we have any major shutdowns of U.S. refineries or more refineries over in Europe, that will cause significant problems. If we see any more of these cables getting cut by the Houthis, or if we see any European to the United States cables get cut, that could cause real problems. Now, we may at first just see loss of data, and they may say, well, this cable was damaged somehow. We don't know how the cable was damaged. It won't probably be overt. Russia probably won't come out and say, we cut X cable. What will probably happen is just the cables will just start getting damaged, and people will be asking, why are these cables being damaged? Is there something happening? Was this an accident? What's up with that? And it may be couched at first as an accident. So that will be a tremendous escalation of conflict between the United States and Russia if we begin to see infrastructure attacks going both ways by the primaries. So if Russia starts attacking European cables that are NATO members, that will cause some significant concerns. And if the United States starts directly attacking more critical infrastructure by Russia. But those are things that we need to be keeping in mind. Definitely a lot of moving parts, a lot of moving things. Hopefully that the cooler heads will prevail in Europe and keep NATO out of direct conflict with Russia. Now they are voting on more weapons packages and all that kind of stuff like that. That hasn't thus far provoked Russia to direct military action. So that is what it is. It's a lot of money, but it is doesn't seem to be leading us to World War III in and of itself, right? All right, friends, thanks so much for watching. If you want to check out another video from this channel, there's one right up here. I'll see you over there, or I'll see you guys later. Steve Poplar of the Poplar Report, out.